Hi guys, and welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. So, last time we had an encounter with a goth girl. And, then what appeared to be some weird, perhaps shared delusion with her where she threw herself off a building. Uh, can't be too sure about what was going on there. But, well, it seems although her lyrics are potentially foreshadowing stuff, it's also possible that maybe maybe the killer is basing the murders they're committing off of the lyrics. I mean, I've seen this done before in other murder mysteries. Won't say which ones for the sake of spoilers, but yeah. So, yeah, let's go ahead and carry on here. I, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I reluctantly decided to go to school today, but before I knew it, I found myself going to buy a phone with my little sister. I'm sh- I'm sure you don't understand what I'm saying, but I don't really understand it either. I thought I was going insane. That's a tip. I thought I was going insane. Short for the full quote. I'll tell you exactly what happened. I blank, but before I knew it, blank. I'm sure you don't understand what I'm go. I'm sh- I'm sure you don't understand what I'm saying, but I don't really understand it either. I thought I was going insane. It wasn't anything simple like hypnosis or super speed. On top of that, I feel as if I only got to experience the tip of the iceberg. A quotation from a popular manga about bizarre adventures, often used in order to cope with difficult to understand situations in a comedic fashion. I've only watched Phantom Blood so far, so I don't really get the reference.
お兄何ブツブツ言ってんの？
Hi, Nanako.
それよりほらこの記事はどうかって聞いてるんだけど。
I think I want to go home. Besides, how many times do I have to tell you that I don't need a cell phone? God, it hurts having a sister this brain dead. When I'd gone to school today, Nanami had made her assault right in my classroom. After happily saying, "Wow, you actually came to school today," she ordered me to go out and buy a phone with her once school was over. Once the bell rang, I tried to escape without her noticing, but I'd forgotten how quick Nanami was on her feet. So, after being chased and easily caught up to, I found myself being dragged all the way to the front of the station. I didn't want to go anywhere near the station, and I felt like that the whole way there. Even now, I already felt like I was gonna throw up. Nanami, though, not giving a damn about what I felt, that's rich coming from you, was busy admiring the many different models on display in the front of the store. I tried to wrap my head around why exactly Nanami was so insistent about getting me a phone, but I just got a headache instead.
これ色が結構可愛いじゃん。いいと思うな。
Since she was asking for my opinion, I gave a simple reply.
それっていい？
でもな、お兄にはちょっと可愛すぎかも。似合わなさそう。
See, it didn't even matter what I said. That would happen regardless. I'd completely lost track of how many times I said, "That's fine," by this point. She would ask for my opinion, but she didn't actually intend to listen to it. This was exactly why 3D girls sucked so much ass.
お兄大丈夫？やっぱり人の技にやられちゃった？マクディで休もうか？
McD. McD, the fucking prime hangout spot for Dokuns. That place was hell incarnate. I violently shook my head no.
そっか。じゃあなるべく早めに決めるね。でもちょっと迷っちゃっててさ。
I sighed, deciding to just leave Nanami behind and go home. While Nanami intensely examined the array of cell phones, I took my chance to slip away. Right as I turned towards 107, I saw something so strange it stopped me dead in my tracks. What was that? Across the crowds of people, on the stairs to 107, stood a girl that stuck out like a sore thumb. Was she holding a sword? The color and aura it gave off felt somewhat similar to the color and aura it gave off of... okay, I think that's a typo. Felt somewhat similar to the mic stand Fess had been using at the concert. In fact, I'd say it was perfectly fair to think of them in the same vein. But even then, it was still one massive sword. It might have even been longer than Fess's mic stand. To my surprise, the girl was wearing a Swanima uniform. I couldn't make out her face from this distance, but despite holding something so conspicuous, the girl seemed relaxed as could be. She simply watched the people walk down the street from atop the stairs. Talk about bravery. I was seriously impressed. I couldn't believe she was walking around right smack in the middle of Shibuya with that massive toy sword. Must have had one hell of a humiliation fetish. Was the sword a cosplay prop from some new anime? Then again, I was pretty familiar with all the anime that were airing. Was there really a series with a sword like that? Had it slipped under my radar? Of course, walking around Shibuya holding one would be too much for me, but the sword itself was pretty damn cool. Kinda wanted to get one, honestly. I wondered if I could get one in Akiba. Even better if I could order it online.
Oni?
I was suddenly struck with an elbow to the back. The pain almost made me black out and collapse on the spot. You are so weak. I turned around to find Anonymous with her hands on her hips, sullen as could be.
もしかして逃げようとした？確かにナナが選ぶのに時間かけすぎたのは悪いと思うけどさ。だからってナナを置き去りにして逃げようとするなんてひどいよ。
I lazily shook my head from side to side.
お兄のバカ、携帯の電磁波の浴びすぎで腎臓を悪くして死んじゃえ。
That's oddly specific. Electromagnetic waves. Waves that exhibit properties of both electricity and magnetism. First formulated by James Clerk Maxwell in 1864, the electric field and magnetic field's oscillations cause them to mutually propagate each other, resulting in a wave that radiates through its surroundings. For that reason, these waves are often referred to as electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic EM waves are divided by frequency into radio waves, infrared light, visible light, X-rays, ultraviolet light, and gamma rays. Electromagnetic waves have long been thought to have harmful effects on the human body, but the World Health Organization, WHO, has made a statement claiming that there is no scientific foundation behind the idea, nor any evidence that supports a causal relationship between the two. However, there's currently no evidence that disproves a relationship either. Also, I meant causal. The fuck was her deal?
一生懸命お兄のために選んであげてたナナがバカみたいじゃん。こうなったらもう適当に決める。お兄なんてナナと同じ機種で十分だよ。
Nanami forcefully grabbed my arm.
本気で今日契約するんだからね。それまで絶対逃がさない。
Don't give yourself a death flag there.
わかったよ。話せよ。
分かったならさっさと来て。
I didn't have a clue why Nanami had gotten so worked up. She really was a pain in the ass. In the end, Nanami picked out a model with ease, as if she hadn't just spent 10 years trying to choose. After spending around an hour on the contract and other technical stuff, I tried to finally head back home with my phone, but Nanami stopped me.
ナナが初期設定してあげるからマクディやろ。
Without waiting for a response, she grabbed me by the back of my collar and started dragging me to the nearest McD against my will.
どうせお兄携帯持って帰っても電源入れずにほったらかしにするに決まってるんだから。ナナがちゃんと使えるようにしてあげる。
God damn it, how much longer was she planning to hold me hostage? And out of all the places she could have chosen to do it in, why McD? The inside of the Shibuya McD was the embodiment of Chaos Head NoAH. There were shitloads of people, and none of them ever shut the hell up. The sheer amount of Dokuns was off the charts. At the table right next to us sat 3 Dokun tier mothers with dyed brown hair, and to make things even better, they'd brought their kids with them. They just left their children, 3 little crotch goblins with red highlights, to be specific, to run around the restaurant squealing their heads off. Instead of controlling them, they just kept on chatting away. At a different table was yet another group of Dokuns, this time made up of 4 high school guys, all laughing like obnoxious pricks. Next, 2 high school girls, complete with baggy socks and dyed brown hair, sat opposite to each other, hyper-focused on their phones. They didn't even bother talking. Beside them was a snoring, middle-aged businessman slumped down on his table, making it pretty obvious that he was skipping out on work. That's the mastermind behind everything. You think he's snoozing, but he's actually in a delusion, preparing his next murder right now, Takumi. But what really made me double take was this table close by, with a group of 5 elementary schoolers. Some boys, some girls. They all sat there with their little school bags on the floor, happily chatting it up with each other as their legs swung back and forth beneath the table. So, considering that it was, co-ed, was it a mixer? It was, wasn't it? Weren't they elementary schoolers? Well, regardless, the point is that as far as the eye could see, there were groups of people that I avoided like the plague. Nanami had no problem at all relaxing at a place like this. Me, on the other hand, just setting foot in here only served to make my headache and nausea 1,000 times worse. Wait, why the hell did I have to play along with my sister and stay in here in the first place?
ねえねえ、着信メロディーはどうする？なんか希望ある？
Without even looking in my direction, Nanami played around with my phone as she prodded me for an answer.
アニソン。
キャッカー。そんなだからお兄はオタクさんなんだよ。
You're the one asking me what I prefer. Come on. It's my phone, so at least let me pick what I want.
あ、そうだ。大村カレラの新曲にしたら？あれすっごくいい曲だよ。最近のナナのお気に入り。
Omura Carrera.
それこそ却下だ。
うん、まあ、お兄に大村カレラは似合わないか。
After showing how little she actually cared about what I thought, Nanami took a bite of one of her french fries. I should probably mention that this bitch asked for a fish sandwich combo before dinner, one that I had to pay for. I, meanwhile, was feeling so garbage that my appetite was long gone. piece of shit says for spoiling her appetite of mine. Fucking bullshit.
あ、そうそう。それとね。
For whatever reason, Nanami placed her bag on her lap and started digging through its contents.
お、あったあった。
Hopefully she doesn't accidentally spill out a bunch of documents. Then she proudly took out. I knew it.
ゲロカエルの不良品。
不良品じゃないよ。先週出たギョロリゲロカエルン。
He's not defective, he's just special.
は？
知らないんだ。やっぱ遅れてるな、お兄は。ゲロカエルンって毎週金曜日に新作が発売されてるんだよ。もう全部で12種類ぐらいあるんだから。
Seriously? Was there really enough demand for weekly releases?
ナナが携帯につけてるのは最初に出た普通のゲロカエルンでしょ。で、次がデブッチョゲロカエルンで、その次がカクカクゲロカエルン。
That's skipping a beat. Nanami recited the names of the various Gero froggies.
第4弾がのっぺらゲロカエルンで、第5弾が輝くゲロカエルン。第6弾が一番人気があって猫ゲロカエルンっていうの。その後が幽霊ゲロカエルン、眠るゲロカエルン、燃えるゲロカエルン、ゾンビゲロカエルン、酔っ払いゲロカエルン。
I want to see the burning Gero froggy. How the hell did she remember all those? Hang on, had she?
お前コンプリートしてるの？
もちろんだよ。全部集めなきゃ意味ないもん。毎週買うのに行列ができるんだからね。
For a half-assed piece of garbage like that, to be honest, even I could shit out a better design. Says you? Well, I mean, his rationale is probably my model collection is so much higher quality. Just look at them. Wait, why had she even decided to start lecturing me on Gero froggies to begin with?
というわけで、このギョロリゲロカエルンあげる。
Well, seems fitting for Takumi.
なんで？
このストラップを携帯につければ、少しは女子から「お、やるな」っていう目で見てもらえるから。
After saying that, Nanami started to put the strap on my phone. I don't want that, the fuck?
コンプしなきゃ意味ないんだろ。僕がそれもらったらお前揃わないぞ。
心配しなくても大丈夫。2つ買ったもん。
毎回2つ買ってるのか？
I was starting to seriously doubt her aesthetic taste.
今回だけだよ。お兄の携帯用に余分に買ったの。
Aww.
わざわざ。
わざわざ。
Having now finished attaching the strap, Nanami gave a satisfied nod before wrapping her mouth around her soda straw. Then she suddenly leaned forward, startling me.
別に並んだのはお兄のためじゃないよ。あくまでついでなんだから。
いらない。
はあ？
Still leaning forward, Nanami opened her eyes wide. She looked like she might throttle me at any moment.
いらないって。ナナがわざわざ買ってきてあげたのに。
Make up your mind.
ついでだったんだろ。っていうか僕ゲロカエルンとか興味ないし、むしろキモいし。
だからお兄は女子にモテないんだよ。
I almost expected her to slap me, but surprisingly, Nanami managed to rein in her temper and sit back down. Then, instead of taking her anger out on me, she started nibbling on a fry instead as she sulked.
でも抵抗しても無駄だからね。ギョロリゲロカエルンもうくっつけちゃったもん。
She sure was acting like the queen of everything. Then again, I knew jack shit about cell phones. So it was true that Nanami knew best here.
もし勝手に外したら毎週並んでもらうの K だからね。
並ぶって何に？
決まってんじゃん。新作ゲルカエルを買うための行列。2時間待ちとか普通だから。
Not a chance in hell. No way was I gonna let my sister hit me with a threat like that. For a while after that, Nanami wordlessly continued to fiddle around with my phone. I wasn't particularly picky about whatever she was setting up, so I was honestly grateful for the silence.
なんだか変な気分だな。
The next time she opened her mouth, her sullen demeanor from before had completely disappeared. I guess she only needed a few minutes to forget annoying shit instead of having to sleep it off. Talk about easygoing. In a way, I envied her.
やっぱ変だよ。お兄とこうして2人で出かけるのって久しぶりな気がするもん。いつ以来かな。よく思い出せないや。お兄はいっつも部屋にこもってアニメ見てるかゲームしてるかだもんね。まあたまにはこういうのもいいかな、新鮮で。さすがに毎日はナナも嫌だけど。
Nanami placed my phone on the table and picked up her fish sandwich. She unhappily undid the wrapping, then heartily sank her teeth in. What teeth? That is just... Come to think of it, I feel like she'd said at one point that the fish sandwich here was her favorite food. The fish fillet sandwich from McDonald's is my favorite food.
せいぜい太るがいいさ。
Nanami instantly stopped moving. She glared at me menacingly. Then, after hesitating for a second, she bashfully held out her half-eaten fish sandwich.
半分食べる？
Other half? That... You only took a single bite!
もう手遅れだよ。
そういうこと言うと上司に嫌われるって覚えといた方がいいよ、バカ鬼。
Nanami ended up finishing the fish sandwich all on her own. And by that, I mean she only finished half of it, but I'm not very good with fractions. What a fucking fat ass. Judgment is nigh for this city. After that, Nanami held me hostage with hours of useless chatter. And by the time I finally had my phone back, it was already dark. It had been a long, painful few hours, but eventually I was able to get away from Nanami and started heading back home. Fall seemed to be in full swing by now, with the night breeze carrying a slight chill, one that soothed my headache and nausea. Those two things never failed to torment me whenever I spent a long time in crowds. Honestly, Nanami, kill yourself. Okay, don't actually, but still. KYS. She only ever thought about herself. She probably didn't even have a clue about how much torture she constantly inflicted on me. If I had the option, I'd love to snap my new phone cleanly in half right now and throw it into the nearest trash can. It wasn't like I bought it with my own money, after all. If I actually did that, it wouldn't just be Nanami that'd come to my base, but my parents, too. And then, without picking up on a damn thing, they'd just go, "Oh, since it broke on you, let's go and buy you a new one." Like the idiots they were. Thus, I reluctantly suppressed my urges to smash the damn thing. I needed to get home, and quickly. I could hear another night of ESO calling my name. Not a single day had passed recently that hadn't filled me with endless anxiety. I really hoped my peaceful everyday life would hurry up and come back already. On that night, another grotesque case occurred. The fourth new gen case. Like always, Grim laid out the details to me while I was playing ESO. Sup, Grim? Bit later than usual today, eh? Whose eyes are those eyes? I couldn't believe my eyes. Why did Grim know that phrase? I was completely taken aback. My fingers trembled on the keyboard. I didn't even know where to start with responding. Hell, even just looking at what he typed nearly took everything out of me. The fourth new gen case happened. Been following the shitstorm this whole time. Things be really heating up in Shibuya. This one's seriously fucking crazy, dude. The victim's corpse had all the blood completely drained out. They found them dead in the Inokashira station bathroom. The corpse was really something. The skin had turned green all over it. Freaky. Seriously, goddamn freaky. Lately, I've even started to think that the occult theories might... damn it. So, blood was drained out, and their skin turned green. Almost like a certain Onceler arm that we encountered in a delusion. I bit my lip as I watched the messages flow. My imagination came very close to forming an image, but I was just barely able to keep that delusion at bay. I took a gulp of soda from the bottle to calm myself somewhat. Damn that Grim. He had to be ambushing me like this on purpose. There's no way a person could do this. No reaction? How do you know so much about it? You're talking almost like you were there. Well, something like that. Also, I guess you're still not interested in this stuff, Nightheart? New gen and all that jazz? Not enough to follow it. Too busy grinding in ESO. Never change, oh lightning-fast Nightheart. A true video game addict that puts the rest of us to shame. Damn it. Maybe I can... That's why we love you. That's why we admire you. I think that's a quote. But anyways, let me look at the tips. Yeah. Video game addict. A term used to refer to someone that stays in their room and constantly plays video games for exceedingly long periods of time, often forgoing food, sleep, etc. You can just say my name. Short for the full quote. That's why we love you. That's why we admire you. A quotation from a popular manga about bizarre adventures, used to express awe at someone's capabilities, often used sarcastically in reference to negative character traits such as pettiness. I didn't really want to talk about New Gen, so I somehow managed to fool Grim into bringing the topic to an end. BT-Dub, take a look at this. What do you think? I'm sensing some serious bait. Last time he done this, he acted like it was some gory shit, only for it to be some random dumbass meme. This time could very well be the opposite. Huh, you seriously don't know about it? About what? Are you actually a wrong-sider, Nightheart? Fuck off. Fine, what is it? What if I said it's related to your precious Seraton? For real? Then I had to look. As far as I could tell, the URL looked like it linked to some auction page, so I probably wouldn't crash my browser or hit me with anything mentally scarring. Crash bait. In fishing, it means to add bait to a hook. In net slang, however, it means to bait out reactions from people via posting provocative opinions or false information. The person doing the baiting then enjoys watching the angry reactions should the victim take the bait, often abbreviated as bait. Crashing. When a program or operating system stops functioning and closes. A number of web pages are designed to overload web browsers or cause the operating system to behave abnormally. Links to such pages are frequently posted on anonymous message boards without any form of warning, and in the worst case scenario, they can have serious effects on the computer of whoever visits the page. Slightly excited, I opened the link. Type B blood in short supply. We saw that before on that tissue packet. Type B blood in short supply. It felt like I'd seen that title somewhere before. Might have been deja vu again. No, you definitely saw it before. Anyway, more importantly, where'd that fap-worthy Seraton pick? I spun my mouse wheel and scrolled down the page. Oh, that is indeed the Onceler. I could tell at a glance that the image that came up on my monitor was obviously gore. I averted my gaze to my left monitor in a panic and quickly closed the browser. The gore had only been on my screen for less than 3 seconds, and the time I spent actually looking at it was even less than that. But even so... It's a picture of the corpse from the new 4th Gen case, from before the mass media started reporting on it. It's being sold on an auction like it's totally normal. It's like they're putting a price on the victim's tragic state itself. So basically, the seller is 100% the new gen culprit. Isn't that insane? The seller name is Vamp Buyer. Well, it's probably just some throwaway. Even so, this has already caused a total shitstorm online. Been posted all over tons of image boards. There's even memes. It's like Rule 34. People do this shit way too fast, lol. I did not know this was a thing back then. Rule 34. If it exists, there is porn in it. A satirical rule on the internet stating that anything and everything has received pornographic material in some capacity. The term can also be used as a euphemism to refer to pornographic fan content in general. Another euphemism in the same vein is NSFW, or not safe for work, as opposed to safe to SFW, or safe for work content. Oh yeah, did you notice the dying message in the image? Dying message? It's written on the wall with the victim's blood. Still can't believe it's there. The culprit probably did it for shits and giggles. Hello? Nightheart's on. You alive? Is your comp frozen? Dying message. Probably whose eyes are those eyes? I'd only seen the image for an instant, and yet...
ゲームだ。こんな世界は虚構のゲームの世界に違いないんだ。
The victim's last message, written sloppily in deep red blood, had been burned into my mind. No matter how much I tried not to think about it, the letters rose one by one on my closed eyelids, urging me to read them.
なんであの言葉がここで出てくるんだ。
I knew those words all too well. Words I often murmured to myself. Words I asked nobody in particular. The words Grimm had first said when I jumped on ESO. It's like they were everywhere now. Those words that I had never actually said to anyone throughout my entire life. Whose eyes are those eyes? Chapter 2, Click Me, finished. Chapter 3, Shogun. Late night Shibuya, 4 a.m. Despite being named the city that never sleeps, very few people are currently present in its most popular locale, Scramble Crossing. Hi, creepy person standing at the foot there. I see you. Please stop smiling at me. You're creeping me out. Oh, there's multiple people. Well, that person in particular is freaking me out. Instead, many taxis were parked in their place, ready to carry away the drunks unwilling to wait for the first train of the morning. A generous amount of the drivers were reclined in their seats, napping. The more diligent drivers leaned against their steering wheels as their eyes stared idly toward the hot spots, the most frequent ones being the center guy and the 107 building. However, they were not trying to ascertain whether or not any of the passers-by were potential customers. Instead, they focused intently on the movements of the sanitation workers, who had arrived about 30 minutes before. The 5 to 6 men were thought to be sanitation workers due to their yellow armbands, each of which had sanitation reporter written on them. Well, no shit. It was very likely that, without the armbands, no one would have recognized them as such, for there was something particularly odd about the men. They were all wearing black suits. And as we all know, wearing black suits in an anime is basically saying, I'm working for the bad guy. Furthermore, ever since their arrival, they had yet to show any signs of cleaning at all. Instead, one man held a strange instrument resembling a pendulum, and the surrounding men appeared to be measuring something. This was not restricted to just one area, however. From the center of Scramble Crossing to the very edge of it, they left no spot untouched, writing all their findings down on various scraps of paper. Even now, they were taking measurements from directly beneath the traffic signals, silently observing the movements of the pendulum. At last, the instrument let out a small chime.
地点 L2 の8、0.62 メガ GE、ハイスコアです。
先月より38ポイントもアップか。思った通りだ。
But there was no one present in the early morning Shibuya to pay attention to the odd mumbling and behavior. The taxi drivers would speed off as soon as patrons boarded their cars, quickly forgetting about the mysterious sanitation workers. The drunks were hardly conscious, leaving them unable to see anything around them to begin with. Female nightlife workers who had just clocked out, that's one way of putting it, finally free from the stress of smiling at repulsive drunkards, jumped into taxis to get home as soon as possible. Thus, not a single person was around to notice that the government had not scheduled any plans whatsoever for cleaning to take place that morning. Vampire. Even after the weekend had passed, the uproar brought on by the fourth new gen case, now dubbed the Vampire incident, hadn't even come close to calming down. A man's corpse had been found with all of its blood taken out of it, leaving the surface of the body a sickly, inhuman shade of green. It had been discovered in a bathroom at Shibuya Station, a part of the Inokashira line. In addition, it was uncovered that a photograph of the corpse had been posted to an online auction, and considering the abnormality and brutality of the murder, it was inevitable that both the mass media and that channel jumped on it. Special attention had been paid to the headline of the auction page, which read, "Type B blood in short supply." Tissue packs advertising an upcoming blood drive had been handed out in large quantities in front of Shibuya Station a few days prior to the incident, and the exact same message had been written on them. I had one of those tissue packs on hand, reading back over it again now. The insanely strange words didn't seem like an ad for a blood drive anymore. They read like some kind of advanced message of the crime. The police had supposedly been searching for the part-timers handing out the tissue packs, but they had yet to find any of them. Huh. Interesting. Diving Manor Campaign. However, there was one area where the vampire differed pretty heavily from the previous cases. While there had already been elements of it in the crucifixion case, the intent for it to be a theatrical crime was much more obvious with this one. Theatrical crime, a type of crime committed under full view of the public. These crimes and their subsequent investigations are reported on in detail by the mass media, who treat it almost as if it's a TV special. Adding to this effect, the perpetrators will sometimes even send a declaration of their crimes. It is extremely easy for theatrical crimes to sow disorder and chaos at NoAH. For example, some individuals may view the criminal as a hero, and some may even be inspired to commit their own similar crimes. The latter individuals are known as copycat criminals. A few media outlets had begun clamoring for increased police presence via patrols, or for a late-night curfew for people under 18. But the number of young people visiting the city showed no signs of declining. They were just as packed as usual, with people flooding every nook and cranny of Center Guy and Scramble Crossing. The internet was so thirsty for news, a group of people trying to be Snake had snuck into Shibuya last night to post live updates. And there had also been a phrase that was trending among the city's younger population. Whose eyes are those eyes? It wasn't just online either. That phrase had penetrated the ranks of each and every doku walking around Shibuya. On that channel, it had become common practice to tack the phrase onto anything, regardless of if it was related or not. This week's episode of Bloodtune won't have much Seraton, whose eyes are those eyes. The new patch's weapons are so weak they're actually undesirable. Epstein didn't kill himself. What whose eyes are those eyes is that from? And so on. To people my age, New Gen was probably just something new and exciting to follow, the newest shit show to obsess over. But to me, it was the most aggravating thing possible. Regardless, a whole 3 days had passed since the vampire case, so I'd been able to calm down a little. Of course, there was still a nagging uneasiness in the corner of my mind. By losing myself in ESO over the weekend, I'd been able to temporarily forget all about that irritating, inexplicable garbage. Even though I'd had to go to school today, I had been able to get through my classes by either sleeping through them or thinking about the stats and frame data of ESO's rarest items. I guess I'd leveled up a bit. And so, on my way home from school, I stopped by at cafe for the first time in a while. It made me happy to see that the room I usually used, room 37, was vacant and ready for me. The last time I'd set foot in it was at least 2 weeks ago, meaning that this was the longest gap I'd ever had between visits. The sour breeze blowing from the air conditioning, the manga stained with the smell of tobacco. Tobacco. How comfortable it was to sit back in the recliner, the snores of old men cutting through the silent, still air. It all provided the store's interior with an aura of pure nostalgia.
ルーム37の PC のチャットログを調べさせてもらいました。そこから分かったことは、あなた一人の自作自演。将軍はあなた自身。
Remembering Yua's words, I cautiously glanced over at the neighboring room 36. I had made sure no one was there when I'd entered the cafe, and since I wasn't hearing any noise, it was probably still unoccupied. Didn't stop me from being anxious about the possibility, though. I got up and slowly peered over the divider, and I saw that room 36 was still empty. Relieved, I sank back into my recliner. I hadn't seen Yua since. We were in different grades, and I didn't go to school that often, so it made sense why we hadn't come across each other.
ユアの妄想はすごいよ。
I couldn't help but pity her. She was clearly sick in the head. I'd be better off just leaving her be. Besides, meeting her at all had been a freak accident. Over the past 2 weeks or so, I'd been dragged into all sorts of random bullshit. Before then, my everyday life had been completely vanilla, and Misumi-kun was pretty much the only one who'd talk to me. So why was it that basically nothing but weird, inexplicable bullshit had been happening to me recently? Whose eyes are those eyes? I wanted to avoid thinking about that garbage as much as humanly possible. That dying message had to just be a coincidence. The words were all pretty common after all. If I'd thought of it, there was no reason someone else wouldn't have been able to do so as well. I'd had no interest in who that message was aimed at. No, I couldn't be interested. That was what I told myself anyhow. Suddenly, something started ringing nearby. I jolted up in surprise, and a shudder ran through me as I stayed rooted in my recliner. It was the sound of a phone ringing. But whose phone was it? Whose ringtone is that ringtone? Because the store was so quiet, the electronic sound rang out all the louder. I looked around, but I couldn't locate a phone anywhere.
もしかして。
The thought came to mind, and I fished around in my bag. Sure enough, the ringing was coming from the cell phone I'd bought just a few days prior. I glanced warily at the LCD display. Normally, the caller's name would be displayed there. Was it a good idea to answer? I didn't like talking to people that much, so probably not. October 13th on Monday. Who the hell was calling me anyway? I hadn't told anyone my phone number yet. The only people who knew it even existed were my family, with Nanami's nosy ass making sure to put them in my address book. One of the people registered in my address book called their name should display, meaning that whoever was calling wasn't a family member. So, who was this? The phone kept on ringing persistently. Did people who had phones usually force people to listen to the ringing for this long? I never used one of them before, so I wouldn't know, but it was incredibly annoying. To suddenly invade someone's privacy like this, cursing them with an obnoxious ringing until they picked up. A socially acceptable way to invade someone's privacy. That was exactly why I didn't want one of these stupid things. Oh, it stopped. Relieved, I checked the screen again. Missed calls 1 was displayed on it. I had no interest in returning this rando's call, so I decided to leave it be. It'd be a pain in the ass if this happened again in the future, so I should really figure out how to set up my voicemail. Cell phones were such a pain in the ass. I didn't even like phones to begin with. I mean, come on, they were freaky as hell. Exactly were you supposed to know if the person you were talking to on the other end was the actual person you thought it was? Especially this day and age. With how prevalent fraud was nowadays, were people actually taking the proper measures to make sure they were talking to the right person? I couldn't help but wonder how people would be able to calmly have a conversation with someone who might be an impersonator. Even if I understood the gist of how it worked, it was hard to believe that my voice could somehow reach distant places through a phone line. When you talk on this phone, your voice is temporarily converted into electrical signals. They pass through the phone lines until they reach the recipient, where they are then restored back to normal. That's when they become audible. In order to talk on the phone, you need to go through this conversion process at least twice. With a cell phone, we already know all this, but okay. Your voice is first converted into electrical signals. Then it travels to a nearby base station via radio waves, which then run through normal phone lines to the switching station, which then to the closest base station to the recipient, before finally arriving at their cell phone right afterward. It was a bizarre, complicated process. If my voice was replaced by electrical signals, could the other party really hear my voice, word for word, exactly as I'd sent it? In fact, wasn't it possible that in the conversion process, my voice and my words could be transformed into something completely different? For instance, if I called Nanami, but instead of connecting to her, it connected to some strange shady corp. And there, I would end up talking to someone I had never met, who's only pretending to be Nanami. Maybe they wouldn't even be a person, but a computer instead. That was the big reason why phone calls freaked me out so much. They were even scarier than talking to someone face to face. When I'd logged into ESO as Lieselot, as was often the case, 3 hours passed by in the blink of an eye. It'd been 2 weeks since I had last used her, but she made for a pretty good support, so I was feeling pretty satisfied. I left at cafe in a good mood and started heading home. Center guy was as packed and noisy as usual, which irritated me. Bright lights illuminating the streets from the various shops made it hard to believe it was nighttime. And at the end of the well-lit road, despite the crowds, I clearly saw her, causing me to stop dead in my tracks. That one girl. Well, well, well. There's a big ol' sword. In the midst of so many people, she glared directly at me. Right smack in the middle of Center Guy, where people were coming and going without reprieve, where it was difficult to even walk straight. She stood still, resting the giant sword she carried on her shoulder. The spectacle was completely absurd. And yet, no one paid her sword any mind. The The stream of people flowed right past her with no change in demeanor. She was the girl I'd seen at 107. She had been there when Nanami was dragging me around to buy a cell phone. The shape of her sword, her Swanima uniform, her long black hair, everything matched perfectly. Back then, she had been standing at the top of the stairs in front of 107, watching the passers-by come and go. And I remembered the sharpness of her glare. I had met her once before, at school. She had these almond-shaped eyes and clean-cut, model-like features, and yet they only served to make her seem all the more unapproachable. And it was all capped off by that long, silky black hair that stretched all the way down to her waist. She was Girl B, the one who had so rudely probed me in the corners after school one day, asking me who I was. Come to think of it, why was she glaring at me? Thinking maybe it wasn't me she was looking at, I turned around. Usually when something like this happened, more often than not, they were just looking at someone who happened to be behind me. But that wasn't the case here. The one she was glaring at, her gaze filled with intense hostility, had to be me. I froze. I knew now what it felt like to be someone's prey. Glaring back was out of the question. I was always terrible at looking people in the eye, so I couldn't help but stare down at the pavement. I should run. Normally, I'd go home by taking a left at Scramble Crossing, where she was standing, and then I would end up next to Book Fact. But today, I headed for the station instead. There were a lot of people there, but I'd rather that than deal with some scary 3D girl harassing me. Hell, she might even try to mug me. Or maybe she was only feigning being alone, and she actually had several Dokuns lurking nearby, waiting for her to lure me in so they could beat the shit out of me. To be honest, they'd probably one-shot me. One-shot. Video game terminology. To kill an entity with a single attack. Like I'd fall for that. I swiveled to the right, only to be caught completely off guard.
Oh. Eh?
Somehow, the girl was right in front of me. Flustered, I turned back around to look at Scramble Crossing. She was no longer there. I looked in front of me once again. The girl with the sword was still glaring at me. I had to let out a yawn there. Just as she had been before. What the hell? When did she get around me? Legs could only move so fast. That was practically teleportation. And besides, how could she have predicted that I'd turn around in the first place?
Oi.
Her voice reached my ears with extreme clarity. I frantically looked around me. I wanted to think she was talking to someone else, even though I already knew full well who she was talking to. I searched for anyone else she could be directing that "Hey, you," toward. But obviously, there was no one. A number of businessmen walking by glanced at Girl B inquisitively, only to realize she wasn't talking to them and walked away. Another yawn. Girl B, who had been standing there imposingly the entire time, took a sudden step toward me. I was all the confirmation I'd needed. Girl B had been targeting me after all.
お前見えるのか
That is certainly not how you should be asking him. I'm talking... whoops. Rude as ever. In my 17 years of life, I could probably count the number of times a girl had talked to me like this on one hand. Well, I guess there were times when Kirimiya Tsubaki, aka Tsunko, had talked to me like that, but it was in a tsundere kind of way. Tsundere, a girl who is usually aloof and acerbic, tsun, but becomes affectionate, dere, when alone with her romantic interest. However, the definition has become more broad recently. Granted, Tsunko was just a 2D character from the eroge Tell Me doll. Girl B kept getting closer and closer as those stupid thoughts raced through my head. Why does she feel so intimidating even though she's a girl? I wondered, but the reasons were simple. A sharp look in her eyes and the gigantic sword she was carrying. For a sword, it had a fairly unique shape. It was the kind of thing that operated on anime logic. It had an awesome design, but if you actually used it in real life, it'd be completely unusable. It had to be from some mecha anime. Had there been any mecha anime that started airing recently? I mean, there's The Witch from Mercury, but that's this year, and your year is like 2008. Even though I knew it was a prop for some random anime cosplay, it still looked incredibly sharp and solid. Like if you even so much as touched it, it would slice your fingers clean off. What a strange sword.
見えるのかと聞いている。
Girl B had already cut the distance between us by 2 meters. If she swung her sword, it would hit me. Flustered, I took a step back, but it was too late. Girl B closed the distance further and further. Oop. She'd actually swung the sword! Okay, so let's see. For this one, pick negative. Cowering on the spot, I covered my head. If I hadn't dodged it, it would have hit my head for sure. I doubted it would have cut me, but with that kind of force behind it, it would have given me a concussion and permanently dented my skull. I hated pain. I was so shaken that my speech got all messed up. Oh, dang.
お前、私が見えているんだろ。はい。
She'd said, "You can see me, right?" Me, as in the person standing in front of me? Girl B? Suddenly, Girl B's expression twisted in misery, and she crouched down in front of me. With her eyes on the same level as mine, her gaze seemed to almost plead with me.
私、誰にも見つけてもらえなくて、どれだけ声を出しても誰にも届かなくて、体はすり抜けちゃうし、寒いし、ほら見て、私足も透けちゃって、自分に何が起きたのかさっぱりわからなくて、もう何年も何十年もこの場所さまよっていたような気がする。
God, is she a ghost? No, that was ridiculous. I didn't have the power to see ghosts. I didn't have anything even like that.
ずっと探してた。私を見つけてくれる人、ありがとう。ありがとう。お礼に。
Oh,
お前に取り付いてやる。
the Onceler arm returns. That was
答えろ。
goofy.
見えるんだな。ディソードが。
The D sword. When I came back to myself, I couldn't immediately grasp what was going on, leaving me to blankly stare up at Girl B. She wasn't crying, her legs weren't transparent, and her hands were just normal hands. What the? Had that been a delusion? At any rate, a D sword? The hell was that? It was the first time I'd ever heard that word. Girl B had said it was a sword, and whatever she was carrying was definitely shaped like a sword, but why was she asking me if I could see it? I decided to just nod. I mean, I obviously could see it. There'd be something wrong with me if I couldn't. Lugging around a sword that large and conspicuous, and in center guide, no less. I'd be willing to accept it if this was Akiba, but in Shibuya of all places.
そうか。お前も集められたんだな。
Gathered. Gathered? Who? And by who? At the very least, I was definitely here voluntarily.
エラーを見たことがあるか。
Japanese, please. Japanese, please. A teasing phrase used on online message boards to tell an incomprehensible poster to please post comprehensively. Whoops. Was what I'd wanted to say, but unsurprisingly, I wasn't brave enough. Then again, if I said the wrong thing, she'd probably stab me, so... Regardless, this chick had been spouting nothing but nonsense ever since she'd first opened her mouth.
見たら教えろ。
After she said that, Girl B turned around. Her skirt fluttered in the breeze, and I could almost see her panties. I hurriedly shut my eyes.
私は3年の青い瀬名。
Aoisena.
駅前の電車にいる。
I opened my eyes. The girl calling herself Senna had vanished. I was completely stunned. It wasn't until I arrived back at my base that I realized that I hadn't understood a single goddamn word she'd said. Despite everything going on, I had to go to school 3 times this week. Somebody kill me. A mysterious screech resounded from far away. The sudden nature of it made me jump, and when I slowly looked in the direction it came from...
鬼
Nanami rushed toward me with staggering speed. I tried to run away, but it was too late. She'd already circled around me and blocked my path. She always did have amazing reflexes.
ちょっとなんで妹見て逃げるの
Maybe because you're incredibly annoying.
あ、そうやってすぐ黙るし
Damn it. Why had she decided to go to Suimei of all places? That decision had done nothing but cause me endless pain and suffering. Whenever she ran into me on the way to school, she always stuck her nose in my business without fail.
ねえねえ携帯どう使ってる使ってないでしょ買ってからもう何日か経ってるけど一度も家にかけてこないもんね
Doing my best to break free, I started speed walking, but Nanami was determined to keep up.
家に生存報告の電話ぐらいしなよ。そのために買ったんだから。どうしても嫌ならそのナナの携帯にかけるだけでもいいからさ。お母さん心配してるんだからね。そもそもちゃんとご飯食べてんの？どうせコンビニ弁当ばっかなんでしょ。やっぱお兄に一人暮らしは無理なんだよ。家に帰ってきなよ。ナナがどんな気持ちでお兄の様子見に行ってるか分かってる？いつも心配でしょうがないんだからね。
STFU! What the hell's your problem? Are you my mom or something? Stop talking about shit like this when we're on the side of the road. It's humiliating. I had already been feeling like shit. This bitch somehow managed to come along and make me feel even worse. There's nothing on this earth more embarrassing than walking to school with your younger sister. The situation came about quite often in Oroge. Hell, I'd always longed for it to happen to me. But Nanami was nothing compared to 2D little sisters. Less than nothing. Damn it, world. Give me a cuter younger sister. A slightly tense atmosphere hung in the air between us as we walked side by side towards school. I looked at Nanami to see if there was any chance of escape before we reached the gate. Even though she had been yammering on and on just a bit ago, she had fallen completely silent, now walking with an absent-minded look on her face. It even looked like her eyes weren't really focused on the road, but that was probably just my imagination. Her footsteps were unsteady. Something must be wrong with her, I suspected. She kept on swaying back and forth, and about a moment later, she stumbled right out onto the road right as a car came racing toward her. Panicking, I grabbed Nanami's arm and yanked her back. The horn of a car blared as it sped by. She just barely avoided getting run over.
お前、何やってんだ？
あれ？
Nanami blinked a few times, then tilted her head to the side.
ナナ、今なんであんなこと？あれ？
I was at a loss for words. She was an honest-to-God fucking idiot. She didn't even understand her own actions. For the record, that wasn't Moe. Not even close.
何やってるんだよ。車にひかれたいのか。
車なんて来てた？
Yes, there was a car! What was with this total fucking ditz of a sister?
ねえお兄、今ヒュンヒュンヒュンっていう音聞こえなかった？
What? What was she talking about? I hadn't heard jack shit.
その音聞いてたらね、なんだかぼんやりした感覚になって。で、あそこに。
Nanami pointed at the corner of the road.
お父さんとお母さんが立ってて、ナナを呼んでたの。
What in the heck? When I looked up to where Nanami was pointing, I didn't see our parents. Instead, I saw a creepy man standing in that exact spot. He wore a plaid shirt, fingerless gloves, jeans rolled up at the bottom, and white sneakers. He had a rucksack on his back that was filled to bursting. He looked like an otaku picked straight up out of Akihabara. Capping off his outfit, he was holding a video camera in one hand. Did he have a voyeur fetish or some shit?
おい、他人を指さすな。
God, what a rude-ass sister. Besides, it'd make no sense for our parents to be here in the first place. They lived in Shimokitazawa after all.
おかしいな。確かに呼ばれたのに。
The man started looking our way. Then he pointed the camera lens at us. What the hell was wrong with him?
行くぞ、ナナミ。
Frightened, I quickly ran from the scene, leaving Nanami behind.
あ、鬼、ちょっと待ってよ。
Huh. That was interesting. I continued to ignore Nanami until we got to school, upon which I ditched her to walk down the noisiest ever hallway toward my classroom. When walking down the hallway, stay along the edge. Don't walk too fast or too slow. Don't make eye contact with anyone. Those were the 3 rules I always followed. It was how I didn't stand out in school. I transformed myself into an existence akin to air itself. That was the secret to my success.
Yo, Taku.
People like him definitely made it hard for it to actually work. Catching up to me from behind, Misumi-kun greeted me in his normal, overly friendly fashion by clapping a hand on my shoulder.
おいっす。挨拶ぐらいしろって。ま、お前がそういうやつだってのは分かってるけどよ。なあ、この前 D 組の女子の話したよな。めったに学校来ねえけど、すげえ可愛い女子がいるって。その子、岸本綾瀬って名前なんだけどよ。
Kishimoto Ayase. That was... a word from Ayase. So, yeah.
実はその岸本に関してすげえ発見したんだ。
She's fess. Misumi-kun suddenly lowered his voice, then looked around us. It was just gonna be something vulgar, wasn't it? Already tired of his BS, I almost let out a sigh.
フェスいるだろ。フェス。
Yep. But what he said made me bite it back.
その岸本ってのがフェスなんだよ。
Yep.
俺マジビビったぜ。まさかフェスがうちの学校の生徒だなんてよ。しかも俺らとタメだってことだぜ。
For whatever reason, Misumi-kun leaned his upper body out the window and gazed up toward the sky with a look of pure ecstasy.
運命ってきっとこういうことを言うんだな。
This was the 3rd floor. If he were to slip, he'd fall to the ground and break his neck, ending his life just like that. My anxiety steadily climbed as I watched him. Misumi-kun leaned farther and farther out the window before switching his gaze down toward the entrance beneath it.
お、噂をすればなんとやらだタク。岸本を発見した。もうすぐここに来るぜ。
With so many coincidences piling up one after the other, maybe it really was fate. Not that I cared.
よし、待ち構えてやる。見てろタク。俺のナンパ術ってのを見せてやれよ。
He was brimming with self-confidence. Man, alpha males like him were really impressive. Picking up girls and all that was a completely different world for me. It wasn't even worth trying. Are you Andrew Tate's top donor or something, Takumi? Did I just say dop toner? Hello there. A few moments later, Kishimoto Ayase appeared. It was just like Misumi-kun said. She really was Fess. I made sure of that while observing her from a safe distance. I still couldn't believe she was in the same year as us. She was wearing a Suimei uniform. A distinct aloofness came from her expression as she'd walked slowly down the hallway. It gave off a completely different impression than the one she'd had on stage. Back then, despite her apathetic tone, I felt a sense of power and liveliness emanating off of her. But now, the aura she gave off felt listless and unapproachable. Ignoring this, likely deliberately, Misumi-kun strolled over to her with the same overly friendly attitude he always had with me, then casually stopped right next to her.
Yo, Kishimoto-san. Oh, hayo.
Dang, she is tall. Whoa, his smile was so invigorating despite being so obviously fake. I had no idea how he was able to act like that around someone he barely knew. That's why we love him! That's why we admire him! Then again, I didn't really want to be him.
あ、俺、三角大輔。よろしく。おっと、初対面とか思ってるだろう。でも違うんだな、これが。俺さ、こないだ、ファンタズムのライブ行ったんだよね。だから、君に会うのは2度目。で、その時君の歌声に、こう、なんつうの？ビビってきちゃったんだ。別に俺、ミーハーとかじゃねえよ。惹かれたのはさ、詩とか君の可愛さとか、そういうところもあるけど、でも何より一番すげえって思ったのは、やっぱバンドとしての完成度っつうか、あの音あっての君の歌声っつうの。ちなみに俺も実はバンドやりたいなって思っててさ、よかったらああいういいバンドメンバーを見つけるコツとか、バンドの先輩としての心得みたいなもの教えてくんねえかな。あ、今すぐじゃ迷惑だろうから、そうだな、放課後とか暇？どっかで二人きりでじっくり話さない
Misumi-kun just kept on talking and talking with no breaks. His tone was different than usual, and it was obviously fake. Not only that, but he wasn't hitting on her directly, instead using the band angle in order to invite her someplace nonchalantly. I never heard this fun fact about Misumi-kun wanting to start a band before. It had to be a lie. He was willing to go that far in order to win some points, to force a flag rather than obtaining it naturally. But... Fess didn't even so much as look at him. Okay, so for this... Positive or neither? Yeah, I'll just stick with neither for now. She simply continued to walk down the hallway at the same pace, as if not a sound had reached her ears. Oh, wait.
なあ、聞いてる？
Suddenly, Fess stopped in her tracks. Her slightly lowered gaze slowly rose up, and then... she looked at me. Huh? Me? Come to think of it, the same thing had happened at the concert. Felt like Fess was staring directly at me. Just in general, I'd been stared at by a whole bunch of freaky 3D girls over the past couple weeks. God, what the hell was going on? Was I becoming popular now? Naturally, I averted my eyes, so I'd only met her gaze for a second.
見つけて早く。
剣を。
A sword like, what's her face had? Damn it, I already forgot her name. Suddenly, Fess spoke. Very little energy could be felt from her apathetic tone. I had no idea if those words were directed at me or Misumi-kun.
剣って？
そうすれば君は救われる。
When she finished whispering at what seemed like no one in particular, her eyes returned to the floor, and she began to walk away. She slipped straight past me and entered Class D. Misumi-kun and I watched her go, the two of us completely and utterly lost.
なあ、タグ。
Misumi-kun was very clearly sulking. In the end, despite his efforts, Fess hadn't paid any attention to him at all. It must have been pretty rough to have had her completely ignore his entire existence. But I was used to that kind of thing.
俺はここまでプライドをズタズタにされたのは初めてだ。自信なくすぜ。くそ。ちょっと有名人だからって調子乗りやがって。あんな不愛想な女、もう二度と相手にしてやるもんかよ。あー、うぜえ。だいたい何が剣を見つけろだ。わけわかんねえ。
A sword. Could that possibly be referring to that mic stand thing that she'd been using during the concert? Come to think of it, there'd been another person a couple of days ago that had interrogated me about a sword. That Senna girl. The one who was absolutely terrifying. I'd actually thought she was going to slice me in two. The sword she'd been carrying was a different shape than the one Fess had, but they had a similar aura to them. Could the two of them be connected somehow? I didn't know. There was way too much shit I didn't know. Shogun, the demon girl, Yua, Fess, Senna, swords. As was my old habit, I jotted down a list of all the things I didn't know enough about in my head. I'd meant to put myself as one final item on the list, but I decided against it. I was completely normal. It was the stuff happening around me that wasn't. That was the most obvious conclusion. Was Fess my ally or my enemy? It would be nice to know at least that much. Problem was, I didn't have the courage to ask her. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put a stop to things here for now. So, we have a weird mic stand, a giant die sword, and there was that weird bow-like weapon, I think, that the demon girl had in the opening scene. So, we about to get super anime here? Or what? Well, guess we'll just have to find out next time and see if we can help Takumi find his sword. So, till then, see you guys. Oh, I just noticed that animate sign said, "For your many delusion and illusion." That is some English. Anyways, now I'll actually end. Bye.